all.
Do you have constitutional questions? Get constitutional answers. We'll be answering your constitutional questions live, so get ready to call in now. Are you a prosecutor, law enforcement officer, or local government employee? Want to make sure you are executing the laws in a constitutional manner? Are you a city council member, township board member, or state legislator? Want to ensure the laws you pass are constitutional? Perhaps you're a citizen who wants to know the proper limits on government and the protections for your God-given liberties. Regardless of your role, call me, Constitutional Attorney Catherine Henry, with your constitutional questions during our live call-in show now at the phone number listed on the screen. And remember, together we can restore freedom.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't know if you guys are seeing what I'm seeing today, but OBS is misbehaving badly today. The opening video didn't start where it was supposed to, and then the audio didn't start, but then it did start, and it was not lined up with the video. So I hope you guys all saw a much smoother experience on your end, but I don't know if you guys are seeing what I'm seeing today, but OBS is misbehaving badly today. The opening video didn't start where it was supposed to, and then the audio didn't start, but then it did start, and it was not lined up with the video. So I hope you guys all saw a much smoother experience on your end. I don't know what to okay. So apparently what I'm hearing is a delay in audio, including as we're going live. It's replaying my own audio of me speaking right now. It's replaying my audio to me live, just with a delay. I've never experienced this in OBS or any other software. It's doing it again. So I don't, this is stupid. Oh my gosh. Oh shoot, I turned down my volume, so that might have turned down the mic volume. Okay, I'm gonna look at the feedback I'm getting from you guys in the chat. Let's see here. Okay, so you can see me, hear me, everything looks good. Okay. Okay, I'm glad you guys are okay. Let me see. This, my phone is muted except for Lori. I don't know how to refresh because it's not a browser. Lori's giving me good advice to refresh, but it's not a browser. It's OBS is OBS is a desktop program, and there's no refresh button. If I close out, we're probably going to lose the live connection. So I'm not quite sure how to handle this. Somebody who knows how this stupid program works inside and out, if you are live and want to help and tell me what to do so we don't have these issues, that'd be great. Why am I hearing myself? Okay, so is YouTube open? Oh, just the live chat. But I think I might have figured this out. Okay. Okay. That is so weird. Okay. All right, guys. Sorry for all that. Wow. I want to throw my computer and my modem and everything out the window. It's just been ridiculous. Okay. So, yeah, there's no other tab open. Like, OBS is OBS. That's why I was asking for somebody who works with it, because it's not like there's no other window. It's its own window, just for future reference. It's its own window. You can't have multiple tabs open. If you can, I haven't figured out how to do that in OBS. But it's just, it kind of looks like a PDF viewer, where it says at the top, file, edit, view, things like that. Those are your choices. So it's not like an internet browser where you have multiple tabs, or you could hit the refresh button or anything like that. It's actually, we started using this when we had major issues with Melon. We switched to Melon after we had StreamYard for a couple of years. So anyway, and then we tried Rumble online. That has its own issues. So anyway, here we are. Welcome to Restore Freedom Weekly. I am constitutional attorney Catherine Henry, and I welcome you to the show. I apologize that we've had a delay in getting us rolling today with all the technical issues. It seems that maybe the storm is getting a little bit lighter here now, but yesterday we definitely had our power cut out and our internet go out several times, so hopefully that doesn't happen today. But at any rate, I do have I was going to say a tiny assistant in the room with me today, but she's not so tiny anymore. She's, I don't know, like 6 inches shorter than me. She has only 11, but she's like a gigantor. So, anyway, so she's going to learn the ropes if the software cooperates. That's the greatest thing. I knew I was having trouble when it just kept crashing yesterday, and I was trying to get the show set up, and then today it was crashing before I even got in here live, and then it wouldn't recognize that I had set up the live stream and all kinds of fun stuff. So, and all my buttons and things that are normally in here were gone. So that was fantastic. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and scroll in here. Keep in mind, what I see is very, very small. Like my little screen is like this much of my screen. It's very small. Of the live chat, and it often jumps around. So I'm assuming you guys were all chatting with each other. I don't know if Lori put in the typical example yet, but what? Of what?
The example of a question.
Oh, Emma's on the ball. She tells me that she saw somewhere that Lori put in the example. What are you pointing at now, honey?
Up there. Sorry, put it up.
Okay. So while I was talking, apparently, because you guys are continuing to do the chat, so it like keeps rolling and I can't see it as it's happening, if I'm paying attention to something else. But Emma tells me that Lori put in there the example of what a, did you see that? It just jumped on me. Yeah. Awesomeness. Anyway, so I'm just trying to look, to see if we have any questions. So again, you just put the word question in all caps, so it kind of draws my eyes to it, and then put use regular capitalization after that to have your questions in there. I do have the phone line open today. I'll put the number on the screen in a minute, but I want to touch base and make sure there's no questions already in the chat. Let's see here. So okay. Okay. So, okay, I see a question. Now, if you asked a question before before blue line transparency at 12:15, then you might want to ask it again because I didn't see it. The thing's stupid and it jumps around, and I can only see about 3 comments or questions at a time in there anyway. Oh, you see that? Lori's all excited that you're in the room with us here. You can go ahead and lean over and wave to Lori and the others. Well, you could put your face in there and smile.
Hi.
There's Emma. Okay. So, the question from Blue Line Transparency, what's the appropriate charges for Coptua? Brian Fahey? I don't know what's going on with that. I guess you would have to fill me in because I feel like I've heard that name, but I can't place what the situation is at all regarding that. So I apologize. I don't have, it just jumped again. That's fantastic. I promise you I'm not trying to skip anyone's question, even if it seems challenging. I will at least address it and tell you I don't know how to answer it if I see a question on here. Okay, so that's actually the only question that I saw. And again, if I missed it, please let me know. But okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put in the call number on the screen. And the phone number, if you want to call, if you're just listening, is 616-303-0093. 616-303-0093. So go ahead and give us a call. And what I wanted to, okay, John Q. Public in the meantime has asked a question. Has officer safety, Pennsylvania v. Mims, the 1977 case, gotten out of control and been perverted by law enforcement, smashing out vehicle windows in order to violate the Fourth Amendment? That is, come on, that is a loaded question. There's so much going on there. But I'll just go with a yes. How about that? I'll just give you a yes. Yes, I would think in general, and I know I have looked at the Mims case at some point, but I'm nowhere near full capacity yet. My memory and all that stuff is just not at full capacity yet after having all the surgeries and everything. And just doing my best. I'm going to give you guys an update on the Court of Appeals case that I have going on down here. That's happened in the last week as well. And I'm looking at what the next steps and options are going forward with that. So I have a lot of that on my mind, as well as some new cases that have been coming down. I keep watching what's happening in Michigan in the Court of Appeals and Supreme Court, and then Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the federal court over those kinds of cases, or that area, that geographic area. As well as, U.S. Supreme Court cases, and I have recently found a way to sign up to get emails of when the Florida Supreme Court has issued cases. So there's no summaries provided for those, though, so I got to open each one just to see what kind of case it is and read through it. I'm hoping to have time to do 4 video summaries of some of the cases that have been just decided, I think, as of yesterday in the Florida Supreme Court. There's I'll get into that in those videos. But anyway, so there's a lot going on, and I'm not just sitting on my hands or twiddling my thumbs or doing whatever. Anyway, all that to say, I don't remember the details of the Mims case, but in general, is there a sense of law enforcement being out of control and perverting officer safety types of protections in a way that then transgresses or turns into a violation of Fourth Amendment protections? And yes, now here's the thing though, let's be honest, that happens with all areas, right? Law enforcement, they violate all kinds of rights. First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment. You name it. It just continues and continues. Of course,
yeah, I was going to go on a long rant about all the other rights that are violated on a regular basis, specifically by law enforcement as well. But something we do need to keep in mind, and this is where I do have a bit of an internal struggle, okay? Because I have an internal struggle. So before 2020, I was thin blue line all the way. I was like, let's support our police because police were being attacked, right? We saw rioting. We saw police officers literally being targeted, being murdered, being beaten, being all kinds of, just physical, imminent danger, safety issues going on just because of being a police officer, which is never okay. All right. And even if they're violating my, countless officers have violated my rights, I don't think we should resort to physical violence to show them who's boss or to show them they've done wrong. That's not what I would condone. I don't think that really fixes anything, okay? I would much prefer our system of government to function as it's designed and for people to be held accountable for their actions, for their wrongful actions in violating our rights. So with that being said, when in 2020, when I was, I think that was by no means the first time that my rights were violated by law enforcement or by the government. In no way, shape, or form was it the first time. But that was the first time where I physically felt in imminent danger and ended up with physical injuries. But it wasn't just what happened. If you've seen the video, it wasn't just what happened in that moment. Keep in mind the time frame we were in, what was going on. In our state, they had masks that were being mandated. They had the prison and jail populations. Whitmer was opening the floodgates for all of the actual criminals who've gone through the whole due process series of events, been found guilty or pled guilty or whatever to even heinous and violent crimes. They're being let out because of COVID and overcrowding in the prisons and the jails and all this stuff, right? But at the same time, they were arresting people for not abiding by curfew. They were, arresting people for trespass because they wouldn't wear a mask in a store. Or, all kinds of absurd things. They were not standing 6 feet apart. They had family over, they had a wedding or they had a funeral and they had more than the 10 people that were allowed to be present. I mean, the numbers are changing weekly in these executive orders that just kept coming out, like it was always yesterday's news. I mean, she was just so bored with what she was doing. She had to find new and creative ways to try to control the people of the state of Michigan. And so you had all those kinds of just people trying to live their lives that were being arrested and some thrown into jail because of these things. And so you had that context. That's when I was illegally and unconstitutionally and violently arrested on Election Day 2020. And I have breathing conditions. I literally have a medical note that says I can't wear a mask. That's why you have never seen me walking around wearing a mask, even in 2020. And I was also not willing to, after becoming friends with Dr. Martin Dubrovik, a renowned epidemiologist and immunologist, and other medical professionals that I trust dearly who have a lot of credentials, PhDs and practicing physicians and you name it, who are like, yeah, let's not do the jab. That's kind of experimental gene therapy and, lots of stuff going on with that. And it's kind of a big no-no if you really want to stay healthy, etc. So I knew I didn't want that. And I was really afraid of what was going to happen because I knew they didn't have the right to do what they were doing to me. And they point blank told me it was all orchestrated because they had permission from high up to arrest me before I even got on the premises. So things were shady and stuff was going down and they were threatening to take my daughter illegally and throw her in the system and not let any of the responsible adults that I knew personally unseen take her. So they were going to take my car, take my kids, stop me from voting, throw me in jail, and do who knows what to me. That's at a time where I was like, okay, you don't have the right to do any of these things, but the higher ups have already given you a permission slip ahead of time to do this. That's where, obviously, I have PTSD. When I see a police officer, even if I'm the one that has called for help for something, if I see a police officer roll up, I get PTSD. Like my PTSD symptoms start showing. I get anxiety going. It's not a choice. It is, obviously I can choose whether or not to try to remain calm or be respectful in communication, which I always try to do. Even the day I was arrested, they were being stupid because they're morons and they have not read the Constitution. They didn't read any of the election laws. They don't know anything about criminal trespass or the functions of government. None of the 3 deputies, nor the sheriff, nor the prosecuting attorney that were all involved in the case. Nothing about that. But who is no longer a prosecuting attorney there, thank God. But anyway, none of them know what's going on, right? But I still tried to remain extremely respectful in the heat of the moment and try to resolve the situation peacefully. Okay? But, there they are acting violently and violating my rights then for 2 years it took to get the case dismissed. And then none of them have been held accountable. Okay? So, there's a real struggle that I have because I don't even want to see a police officer. I used to feel safe when I saw law enforcement around, and now I feel in danger. Literally. I feel like I'm in danger. I feel like who knows what they're going to do. It doesn't matter if I have the law on my side. They are here to cause me problems. Or their ignorance of the law might lead them to cause me problems, even if they don't intend to do harm. That's where I'm at with that. But on the same token, I do know that there are police that are targeted in communities where, it's the BLM movements are strong and things like that, and riots are allowed. And, what's happening to ICE officers and whatnot in California, for example, that they're threatening they're physically harming the officers, but they're also then threatening their spouses and their children and their families. And that's not acceptable. Like, 2 wrongs don't make a right. So all lives matter. Police lives matter. My life matters. Black lives matter. Asian lives matter. Hispanic lives matter. All lives matter. No lives should be put at risk. No one should be put at, risk of great bodily harm. So with all that being said, you asked a complicated question, and I'm just going to rest on my answer of yes to that question. I guess it'll teach you to ask an open-ended question like that again. But let me scroll back to that to see if anybody else has asked a question in the meantime. Wow, you guys have kept the chat going. Okay, and Lori, shoot, you had said, okay, there's Long Island audit went to Connecticut State Trooper Fahey's house to ask questions, and Fahey told him to leave. He started to leave. Fahey grabbed his handgun and stormed him down the long driveway. What do you mean stormed? Like chased him down? Okay, spitting in his face. Long Island audit did not stop moving towards the road. Okay, so I'm going to pause before it seems like there might be some more follow-up or whatever. I'm going to pause at that point, and without me seeing the video, I don't want to say who's right and who's wrong in that situation. Because if someone comes to my home and they are definitely, I'll just say on the other side, okay? They come to my home and they're being aggressive just in their method of questioning. It seems like they're harassing me. They've come to my home, right? Not my place of business, not whatever, like they've come to my home. Then, and I ask them to leave, I might very well make sure that I have a method of protecting myself with me, whether I carry a baseball bat or whatever. When someone came and was menacing and threatening my son here at our home, he tried to nicely get them to leave for a long time. And when they were swinging a sledgehammer at him, he grabbed the only thing that was near him, a paver, a brick. And he said, listen, if you don't leave me alone, if you don't leave my property, I'm going to have to throw this at you. And she's mentally ill and she did not leave, and she charged him. And he had to throw the brick at her, and that didn't do anything. And he had to pick up the other one. And he's like, listen, I purposely didn't hit you when I threw that at you, but if you keep coming at me, I will have to actually hit you to stop you. And she finally decided to leave, but made sure to hit his vehicle and hit some of our other property with a sledgehammer on her way home. So at any rate, yeah, so I guess it, again, without me seeing it, I can't speak to it other than with that brief description there. If somebody is coming to my home, I'm not saying, you know, if you go to someone's home, I'm not saying it's wrong if you have a way to protect yourself with you and you're saying leave, you need to leave. That's not wrong. And if you chase somebody all the way down your driveway and you're like, you better leave, get the hell out of here, don't come back, you know, you're not welcome here, whatever. And if you, like my driveway when we lived in Belding, our driveway was extremely long. It was not a typical driveway, even though we lived in the city limits. Last house in the city limits, we tend to do that. We had a very long driveway, and you know, yeah, I could see myself saying, no, you need to get out of here, don't come back, don't step one foot on this driveway or any part of this property ever again. And I would want to make sure that they left the property, right? I would want to essentially escort them out and make sure they left and weren't lurking, or like, you know, if there's a lot of trees or whatever, that they looked like they started to leave and then they turned and then hid behind some trees and then came back, or who knows what, right? Who knows what? So it just depends on the scenario. I'd love to see the footage of that. If it's not terribly long, I'd love to see a short clip of that and give some feedback that way, so I can give you an honest interpretation of what laws should be applied there. But, you know, and again, this is coming from someone, if I see police in my neighborhood, I am no longer thankful. I am fearful, because of who knows what they're going to do. And I have the city after me, unlawfully have been after me for 3 years now. And so, you know, this is not, I don't say this from a place of like blindly supporting police. You know, I will never in public wear my thin blue line shirt ever again. I paid a lot of money for it, and because it was supporting a local business that made the shirts, and it's really soft and comfy. So I might wear it for pajamas at some point, but I'm not going in public. So at any rate, and even the spitting in his face, I feel like I'm missing context. You know, because when you say he was spitting in his face, at that point, he hasn't left, right? You know what I mean? He's not in retreat mode if he's having his face being spat in. He's still facing the home and facing the trooper. So I would love to see, and by the way, guys, I have never heard of or seen anything about Long Island audit to suggest that he crossed a line. So I'm not coming from that perspective. I'm just saying, with the very limited facts in front of me, I can't say who did what wrong. Maybe they both were wrong. Maybe one of them was wrong. Maybe there's a reasonable interpretation from both perspectives that neither one of them did something wrong. I don't know. Okay. So, too early in the morning for that question. Well, it's 12:36, so I guess I can't claim it's too early in the morning. Ended up getting arrested. Okay, wait. Who got arrested? Lori. Who got arrested? Which one? I want to know this. Okay. All right. And, okay. looks like Lori shared the Pennsylvania v. Mims case. So if you haven't read that, and I do suggest using Google Scholar because it's free. And they have quite a few cases on there. They don't have every case on there. There's some stuff that I've needed that they haven't had, but it's quick and easy to use. I have some resources available, some limited resources available to me through my State Bar of Michigan membership, which is required to be a practicing attorney with the admitted to practice law in the state of Michigan. But at any rate, let's see. Okay. All right. Back the blue until it happens to you. You know, yes, Blue Line Transparency, I just happened to notice that comment back when I was describing or answering the question that somebody else had asked, I think it was. But back the blue until it happens to you. It's interesting though. You say it that way, but here's the thing. I still would back them. You know, if I saw a cop responding, you know, we live in the Daytona area. Okay. And so there's a lot of events here. We have the Daytona race at Daytona International Speedway. We have Truck Week. We have Bike Week. We have Biketoberfest. We have Jeep Week. We have all kinds of events that happen very close to where I'm at. And so we have, and then this is, you know, Daytona Beach is the world's most famous beach. We got all kinds of things. We're not that far from Orlando, which of course has, you know, SeaWorld and Disney and Universal and all that fun stuff. And anyway, okay, so it's just, we're not that far from the freeway. If you're coming from northern states and you're driving down to Miami, you potentially might just stop in our community to stop for the night, stop for an afternoon, for lunch, whatever, right? So we have a lot of people that are here, especially that are transient people that are here. And, you know, if there were a situation where I'm out at an event and I see a cop is surrounded by a bunch of people and they're physically threatening a cop because he's a cop, right? Or whatever, that it seems like his life and his physical safety is in imminent danger, I would have no problem stepping in. I would have no problem stepping in to help. Not because I trust that he would in turn do that for me, because I don't trust law enforcement and I don't trust law enforcement down here specifically, but because it's the right thing to do. You know what I mean? So I would not so much back the blue. I would back a human life. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to be clear, especially as freedom fighters, especially as, you know, First Amendment auditors, as people with, if any of you have a social media following or, you know, you're out there commenting in public in, you know, verbally or, you know, on social media or the internet or whatever, whether you write articles or whatever you do, okay? If you're conveying a message in public at all, make sure your message is clear that you support holding government officials accountable, especially police officers, because they're like the first line of response, right? They're the main ones that have that initial determination whether your rights are going to be violated. Because if they never make that arrest, that wrongful arrest of you, you never have to deal with the prosecutors and the, you know, the court system and the, you know, yada, 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 right? So, and if they do choose to make a wrongful arrest, then you have to deal with potentially corrupt or ridiculously stupid prosecuting attorneys or judges or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, so they are your first line of defense in terms of your constitutionally protected rights actually being upheld and protected. So, at any rate, where I'm going with that is, I don't know. I've just got so many thoughts on the issue, and I've seen in the chat like lots of stuff continuing to go. So just make sure that if you're out there spreading a message, you're spreading a message of holding people accountable in ways that are safe and appropriate. And by safe, I literally mean you're not threatening someone's physical safety. You're certainly not trying to threaten or harass or intimidate their spouses or their children that have nothing to do with anything. Now, for example, I want to say it's the Lane Myers case. There was an issue. I don't even remember the details now because it's been so long ago since I read the pleadings. But I believe there was an issue that started with the husband, not Lane Myers' husband, but he was like having an issue with some guy. And then somehow he was led to communicating with the guy's wife, who also worked for a governmental body or agency or whatever. And that's a different story, right? Because it's not somebody who's just, a stay-at-home mom or just works at, at a private school being a kindergarten teacher or whatever. Like, it's not somebody like far removed from the situation. It is somebody who was also in the realm of knowing better and working for the government and having an oath of office and all these other things, right? So, just talking to somebody's spouse is not what I'm talking about, or just trying to hold them accountable as well is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, if somebody doesn't like the work that let's say I'm, back when I was a township trustee in Georgetown Township in Michigan, if somebody didn't like that I was fighting for freedom and they didn't like how I was standing up for the Constitution and, not having to wear masks to attend our meetings and all that fun stuff, and actually holding our meetings in public. So, because we work for the public, that kind of thing, right? So they didn't like what I was doing, and they decided that they wanted to try to attack my husband or my children because of what I was doing, or they wanted to bully or, somehow do something with my husband or my children. That's not okay. That's just not okay. You know what I'm saying? So let's make sure that every time that we are spreading the message of holding someone accountable, that we are clear what our message is, what our intent is, and what we're hoping other people will do. Because we want to make it clear that it's the other side that's freaking crazy, right? And it's the crazy liberals out there that are literally rioting and destroying and using violence and destroying properties and businesses and homes and lives and endangering people. And we want to make sure that there is a clear distinction between what we are doing and what we are fighting for and what they are doing, right? So it's very important that we make that distinction in everything that we post. Even if you're someone who's just a nobody, in terms of like social media influence or whatever. Don't think that your comments on posts or that your videos or whatever don't carry that kind of weight. It can still be picked up and stitched or this or that, or, have a duo or duet, whatever all the stupid social media platforms call it when they, grab somebody else's content and then use it in their own videos and whatnot. So at any rate, okay, I have no idea what comment made me say all that, but I don't see another question yet. I'm trying to scroll very carefully so it doesn't jump. Yeah, Lori sent out a reminder about questions. Thank you, Lori. So if you're joining our show later on, you weren't with us from the beginning today, make sure to put the question in that format that Lori showed you an example of just a little bit ago in the chat. She's done it a few times, but just put it in that format, because just like what I'm doing right now, I'm not reading all the comments. I don't have enough time to read all the comments and still be able to address things. So I am there wasn't just one voicemail though. There was other stuff going on. But regardless, whether it's one voicemail or whether it's 5 voicemails, if somebody works for the government and you're contacting them on their government email or government phone line, and you are asking them questions about their oath of office or, their performance of duties in the, through the lens of constitutional limitations or something like that, that's still okay. That is still okay, because they are government employees and you're a member of the public, so they work for you, and that's appropriate. But whether it's one time or 5 or 10 or 50 times, you should never call with any threatening, menacing, or harassing language or, you know what I mean? Like something where somebody could reasonably fear that you're going to harm them in some way. All right. Okay, shoot, it just jumped again. I'm sorry, guys, if you asked questions. Okay, it looks like there were no other questions. So I'm going to throw that screen on real quick. So if you guys do have questions, okay, and John asked, oh, Jay Curvitt asked a question too. I almost missed it, Jay Curvitt, because you didn't have the word question in all caps. So just remember to do that, because it is hard for me to see unless I saw John's right below you. So anyway, I'll get to those in a second. I'm going to answer those 2 questions. But as a reminder, if you do have questions, I'd love for you guys to call in so we can actually hear your question. And maybe there's some back and forth dialogue that we could have about it that would flush things out and I could more fully answer those questions. But the call-in number is 616-303-0093. Again, 616-303-0093. And I'm going to go back. Oh, shoot. Now there's another John. There's a whole bunch of questions. This is great, but hopefully none of them get lost in the realm of things here. So yeah, I'm trying to look at them on another. Okay, so what do I think? She asks me, what do you think about giving your local government a cease and desist letter when your civil rights are violated at public meetings? I laugh because I provided my local government with a cease and desist letter, not when my rights were being violated at public meetings, but when they were coming after my home and they were violating the law. I wrote them a cease and desist letter. Did they respond? Did they do anything to address that or my concerns? No, they just ramped up and violated my rights continually for the next 3 years. But honestly, cease and desist letters are largely useless. I mean, it's a potential threat of legal action, depending on how it's worded. But most people are like, well, I don't know what else to do, so I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. Or they're like, well, I'm going to call their bluff. They're not really going to do anything about this. Or they might say, well, if they do something, I don't really care. I have my own attorneys. Or they might say, I don't really care if they're doing something, if they try to do something because I have the right to do what I'm doing. You know what I mean? There's so many different reasons why somebody might not give you the result you're looking for with a cease and desist letter. And the cease and desist letter on its own, by and large, has literally there's no legal oomph behind it. So typically, if you want to see something done, you have to file some sort of action in court or, a notice of intent to file some sort of lawsuit, depending on what the lawsuit is. Sometimes that's a requirement. So now if you think you have people that might be open to reason or who maybe they're people serving on a local government who don't otherwise, they've gone astray. But if they were pushed enough, they might actually seek sound legal counsel. Then maybe that's a scenario where writing a cease and desist letter and then explaining exactly what it is they're supposed to cease and desist doing, and what some alternatives are so that your rights are not violated. Perhaps that would be the best scenario for writing a cease and desist letter, because if I was representing a municipality or a government official and they came to me and they said, I got this cease and desist letter, I'd read it and I'd go, okay, well, first of all, do you agree, with the allegations of the things that they're saying you did? Let's assume for the sake of argument, they're saying, yeah, of course, we have the right to reduce that person's public comment time to 30 seconds when everybody else gets 3 minutes or whatever the case is, right? Then I would go over the situation with them and say, well, listen, there's some, legitimate concerns of what they could do, but really what you need to be focused on is that you have a job to do, and your job must be done within the confines of the Constitution. And the citizenry has rights. The government does not have rights. So you as a government official, you have no rights. You as an individual, even if you're a government official, you as an individual have rights, but your rights do not override somebody else's rights. It's a, there's a balancing game as far as, making sure rights are upheld. And that's really what the government's job is, to make sure when I'm utilizing my property, my rights, etc., that I'm not then trampling all over your property or your rights in so doing. So anyway, John Q. Public asks, what is your opinion of what Sergeant Robert Magnifico Elwood of the Pennsylvania Police did to the teen boys in the Sheets video? Attorney John Bryan covered this as well. I feel like I've seen that too, but honestly, I can't think of what happened there. If you guys want to send me very short videos of stuff, like very short videos of what's going on in a scenario, and you want me to speak on it, if you want to send those, email them. I had one person that sent me one or a couple videos, I can't remember now, but they sent me some videos. Unfortunately, they sent them after the last show, and unfortunately, we've had stuff coming down the pike with our Court of Appeals case, and we're also losing our health insurance as of August 1st, which is great for people with cancer like me, so I'm super thrilled about it. And we're trying to figure out all these things that, we have just days, right? Just days to figure out all these legal, health, and financial implications that are impacting our lives in major ways. So at any rate, I did have one person, but my intent is to view the video, and depending on the context and how long it is and whatever, all that stuff, to do like a response video, right? And if we get rolling on those enough, I can even integrate that into our shows here, but it's probably a better format for me to do that as a reaction video. So I would love to comment on it. If you want to send me little, like whoever asked me, maybe it was also John Q. Public, but whoever it is that asked me about the original thing with Long Island audits, if you have the just the part of the video that shows him, knocking on the door, trying to ask the questions, being chased down the driveway, whatever, just that piece, and not some like big elaborate stuff before or after or whatever. I would love to see just the meat and potatoes of that situation, and I can give you my thoughts about if the trooper, should see any kind of legal ramifications for his actions. This situation with the teen boys that you're talking about now, John Q. Public, again, I would love to provide feedback on that. If there's a short video that I can watch and do, essentially a reaction video and give you my feedback on that, I would love to do that. If you want to send that over, contact@restorefreedomkh.com. That is the main email address, contact@restorefreedomkh.com. Okay, so question, and this is from another John, how do you fight an unconstitutional town ordinance? There's a lot of ways that you can fight an unconstitutional town ordinance. I would even argue the vast majority of ordinances are unconstitutional. So there are some people that are big, 10th Amendment proponents, right, that think the 10th Amendment is all about states' rights. States don't have rights. And some people take it a step further and say it's not even states, it's about local government. Really, local government should have control of all the things, right? Local government, state government, federal government shouldn't have control of how we utilize our time, money, effort, property, how we live. That's not what a constitutional republic is all about. If you are not violating the rights of someone else, then, there really shouldn't be any role of government in there. So at any rate, with that in mind, how do you fight an unconstitutional town ordinance? It sounds like a small community. What I would say is that there's a wide variety. I mean, obviously, if you've been directly impacted, you could try to file a lawsuit. That doesn't always work, even if you have the law and the facts on your side. You can do an unofficial petition. And I say unofficial because A lot of communities, a lot of states have legal procedures for specific types of petitions that have to be typically in a certain format, with certain kinds of information on there about who's signing it, and probably what their physical address is, the date they're signing it, their full name, their whatever. All kinds of legal boxes must be checked, so to speak. And it would serve a particular purpose. Are you trying to do a recall of the people that support keeping that ordinance in place? Are you trying to do a repeal of a particular piece of, legislation, a law, or something of that nature? And that can happen at the local level, at least in places like in Michigan. A lot of other states don't offer necessarily direct action with a legal type of petition. But if you have a, what did I call it a moment ago? Not an illegal petition, but a non-legal petition where you still have enough of the, so in my case with the city, when they brought us back to court unlawfully for another set of orders to be have more fines imposed against us last year over the same finding of violation that was found the year before. You can't have multiple orders for fines on the same finding of violation, right? You can't, at least down here, at least with the statutes we have, 162.07, you can only have one of those orders anyway, 162.09 for a 162.07 finding a violation order. And anyway, so they brought me back and I said, okay, well, this time I'm going to, now that I know, I was actually given notice that that's what they're going to be talking about. And by the way, it wasn't really on the notice what we were doing, so that's actually really not notice. But when I asked questions, they actually answered what the purpose of the hearing was in email. I was like, okay, if this is what your intent is to say that I owe the city money, I should be fined. I went and looked at the language of the statute, right? 162.09. I went and looked at the language of the statute and basically put that wording in there to say, and turned it into a question that people could sign, so that people in our community, to some degree in the larger, city of Ormond Beach, but specifically within our community, that they did not think that our property harmed them, their property, or the neighborhood or community in any way, shape, or form. And so we shouldn't be fined for that, because the statute does not require a fine, even if we are supposedly guilty of what they said we're guilty of not getting the permit and putting all this stuff in and that it's supposedly required. So even if that's true, the statute doesn't require us to be given a fine. So I put together this petition, and it had, in fact, I just found them again in my briefcase and I just put them away today. The last year obviously has been a lot of other things going on that I haven't gotten to some of the paperwork. Anyway, and it's just literally, I made it, on a Google sheet, and it's got their name, their address, the date. I'm sure I must have asked for something else, but like first and last name, address, zip code, date, that kind of thing, right? And we had hundreds of people just in a few short days of the notice that I was given. We had hundreds of people sign the petition. So that's not a legal petition. That's, a non-legal petition, but it was submitted to show, for the purpose of, showing that no fine, and the community in general agreed that no fine should be imposed to us, even if we're supposedly guilty of what they've alleged that we've done. And so that's the kind of thing, if you want to change, if you want to get rid of an ordinance completely or change the wording of it to make it so that it's, it becomes more constitutional, you can do some sort of petition like that and have, if you have a town of 5,000 people and you get 500 people, or if you get 1,000 people to sign this petition, I mean, that's going to speak volumes. Does it have legal ramifications? No. But is it something that could jumpstart them to doing the right thing? And then if you have a small handful of people, 5 or 10 people that are consistently going to your township meetings and they're saying, we've submitted this petition. This is what's wrong. Here's the problem. Here's how this particular ordinance violates the Constitution. We have given you a solution, which is to simply repeal this ordinance or to fix it in this way, right? We've given you a solution, and we've told you that many members of this community think this is the right thing to do, and you need to do this. You must take action. And if you have people that continually go to the meetings and speak in solidarity about that, that generally would be a way to get people to, on the board to move and do something the right way. And so that would be a way that you could do something. You could, it just depends on what the ordinance is and what it's all about. But those would be my suggestions, right? That's really my top suggestion. But if your state or even, so your state laws or your state constitution or even your community's own charter, which is like the local constitution, if they anywhere in there have a procedure for repealing ordinances, then follow that specific procedure and try to get it repealed that way. If it puts any power within the hands of the people at all. And if it doesn't put any power within the people themselves, and it just lays out, steps that the board or the commission, the council, whatever it is, must take to do something, then you have an action item. You can point to where it says this is what must be done. They are the only people that can do it. And again, I would still go with that, unofficial petition method and try to get people, to show up and speak and send letters and send emails and have their voices heard on that. Okay, so why does it do that? It just scrolls. It doesn't matter. It just scrolls on me. Okay. So, question. Doesn't the force have to be equal to the force inflicted upon a person? Okay, so John, I'm not sure what context. I feel like maybe there was a specific context you're asking there. The force doesn't have to equal the force actually inflicted on a person. The force has to be reasonable given the imminent threat to you in that moment. Okay, so if you have a reasonable fear of imminent bodily harm, let's say for example that long before I met Mike, there was a point in time where I dated an MMA fighter. Okay. And let's say I was at an event and there's some, MMA fighter doesn't like my shirt that says, I'm pro Second Amendment or whatever. Okay. And so, I'm off, walking in my car. I'm by myself walking in my car to grab something at the event. And this dude decides he's, tough shit and he's going to try to come after me. And he looks like he's about to throw down and he has no weapons, but he looks like he is intending to cause me bodily harm. And this dude is, 250 pounds, solid muscle. He's got 3 inches of height on me at least, and I'm pretty damn tall. But in that moment, even if he doesn't have a weapon, no, I'm not limited to, waiting for him to punch me and then punch him back, if that's what you're asking me. That's not at all what is reasonable in that situation. No, if he's, physically getting, going like this to choke me, or he's, getting ready to knock me out. I mean, if an MMA fighter or boxer or whomever, right, a very physically fit person decides that they're just going to try to cold cock me, they could knock me out. They could kill me, right? They could harm me seriously in any event. I would have the right to defend myself. Whether that's, hey, I see a baseball bat sitting there, or I've got my concealed carry, I've got my weapon on me, or whatever it is. I could try to unlock my door and smash him in the face with my car door, or whatever the situation is. I don't have to match them with the force. You know what I mean? Like, because it's relative, so it really depends on what your context is talking about. But if you're talking about the again, if you're talking about the situation of Long Island audits, I don't think you are, because I don't think that there was actually any force used by Long Island audits. My example in talking about that, I said it could potentially, if I saw the video of what happened, if it could potentially be reasonable that the trooper had his firearm. First of all, he might have just had it on his person anyway. I mean, you can do that. But if somebody has come to your home, that's a whole nother level of threatening. So I don't know. Again, if you want to maybe expound on that, question, and clarify if I've kind of taken it a wrong direction or something, by all means, re-ask it in a different way, and I can answer it. And while I am looking there, I'm going to go ahead and throw the call number back on the screen, because we've had several questions in the chat, but man, this has been a strange series of events that, well, last week we didn't have questions because OBS wasn't playing nice with YouTube, and even though everything all looked like it was all live and going within OBS, it turned out it wasn't. So I had to just live stream the recording of it later on and just join you in the live chat of that. So anyway, I would love for people to actually call in. I want to say we had, it wouldn't have been the last time. So it would have been the last show in June that we had a new caller that had some questions, comments, whatever, that came up towards the end, and I strongly suggested that they give us a call the next time. So if that's you, if you're in the audience and you have those questions, please give us a call today. 616-303-0093. And all right, so let's see. Amy P, I have no idea what it is that you're saying we need to change that, but whatever it is, I'm sure it's true. There's so much we need to change. One thing I would love to change, especially since I see that comment came after Jay Curvitt saying, thank you, Catherine, which was a follow-up to her question. I think for as backwards as Michigan is, at least as of 2020, Michigan was one of a handful of states that even had all the different ways that the people themselves could directly petition. So to recall officers, to repeal certain statutes, to propose a constitutional amendment, to I want to say there were eight different things that the people had the right to directly petition that don't ever happen anywhere else in the country. Like, no other state has all 8 of those aspects. Some states only have 1 or 2, and some states, may have a few more. But at any rate, there's actually a lot of opportunity there, and I think that is something that we need to change so that every state has, the citizens have the same options there. I was just gonna answer a phone call and it went away. And wait a second. It says I missed 2 calls. Let me see. I'm going to call the person back. It is somebody we've spoken to before. I can't think. Maybe if this is Jay Curvitt. I don't know. Hello?
Hello, Miss Henry. This is John Q. Public from the chat. How are you?
Oh, yes. Hi, I'm good. How are you doing?
Okay. So I think the main concern with the videos that we're talking about here, the one with Fahey and Sean, then the teens and the Sheets gasoline station with the officer there, and then just in general, when we're seeing all these videos with police interaction and then they're smashing out the windows in the vehicles for officer safety, this is what I was getting to earlier. This seems to be a catch-all for all these police interaction, that the default for the police for their actions against the citizens is going to be officer safety. And in the incident with Sean Reyes and Sergeant Jeff Fahey, I believe that that's probably going to be the excuse that Sergeant Fahey is going to try to use, is he's going to try to claim officer safety, that this reporter came to my home, knocked on my door, stepped off the porch, went back onto the drive, and asked a question, and I didn't like it. I go back into my house, I get my pistol, and force this guy to get off my property. And that's what he was doing. Sean was there to ask a question involving embezzlement of government funds for overtime pay that he was not entitled to get. Sergeant Fahey has a 9-to-5 job now where he operates the CCW or CPL desk in issuing out firearm permits. He doesn't work patrol anymore. As a matter of fact, he's restricted. He can only work a 9-to-5 job, a desk job, because he's had officer-involved problems on the street before. And because of the union, they have him working a desk job, and that's what he's going to do for the rest of his life. But it doesn't involve any kind of overtime. And that's what Sean Reyes was there to investigate and ask questions about. And he's not been allowed to go to the state police barracks or his office to ask questions. He's been asked to leave there. So he did try to go to the residence. He did go up there to knock on the door. He stepped off the porch, back onto the walkway, and asked his question. He was nowhere near a threat to Sergeant Fahey at all. None. Just had a camera to record the answer to the question. Sergeant Fahey tells him to get off the property. Sean and the cameraman walk backwards. They're getting off the property. And Sergeant Fahey comes out with a pistol after the threat has gone. So Sean's leaving. He comes out, runs up to Sean Reyes with the pistol at the low ready to the side, tells him he's a trooper. He's a Connecticut State Trooper. He's not even in uniform or anything, and he's on his off day. Comes right up to Sean, spits in Sean's face, and this is when Sean is almost to the public sidewalk, where there's no more immediate threat whatsoever, and it's basically Sergeant Fahey that's being the aggressor the entire time. Still approaches Sean off of his property, past the public sidewalk, onto the approach to the driveway, and is still engaging with Sean instead of retreating. There's no threat, and Sean is not armed at all whatsoever. And then the other officers from the local police department, where Sergeant Fahey lives at, come over there, and then they arrest Sean Reyes. One of the charges was voyeurism. Then they did trespassing, and they also charged the other cameraman with voyeurism too, is what happened, instead of charging Sergeant Fahey for what he did.
If you hear me. Oh, are you there?
Explained was a felony.
Okay,
what he did.
Hold
so,
on. Can you hear me?
But that's my concern, is that this officer safety stuff is getting out of control.
Okay, hold on. It's not.
Hello?
Yeah, it's not working.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you cut out for a second again? Huh.
Okay.
This technology stuff is, I'm gonna throw it all out the window. Anyway, so I didn't hear the tail end of what did you say he was charged with trespass and what other offense?
So the local police department were going to charge Sean Reyes and his cameraman that was in tow, both with voyeurism. And evidently that is some kind of a felony in Connecticut. And they're also charging them with trespassing.
Well, what's the word you're saying? I don't think I've heard that word. Can you
voyeurism? They're charging them with voyeurism is the charge.
I've never heard of that word.
No, I haven't heard of it either. But then when I looked it up, basically what it is if you like are a peeping Tom or something like that, and you go to somebody's house with a camera and you start trying to take pictures or video through their window, that's considered voyeurism. Voyeurism is also like what happened to the one sports reporter where there was like a hidden camera or that video was being taken of that sports reporter while she was undressing in her hotel room. That's considered voyeurism. But that's what they're charging Sean Reyes with, is this voyeurism charge.
Okay. That's interesting.
So it's basically the unlawful taping or taking pictures of a person in their private area, what they would assume that they have a certain level of privacy. It would be the same thing like if there was a camera in a restroom, in a female's restroom, or like a fitting room, and somebody was a pervert and they were taking video or something like that. That would be considered voyeurism.
So I just now that I guess I was hearing the word correctly the whole time. Because I'm hard of hearing, I assumed I was not hearing it correctly. But now that I wrote it down and I just quick Googled it. The definition is the derivation of sexual satisfaction by watching people secretly, especially when those people are being watched, that those people being watched are undressed or engaging in sexual activity. What in the world? That has nothing to do with him being there as a journalist.
That's what's on the video. That's what they said they were charging them both with. You can hear the local police officers saying that that's what they're charging him with, is voyeurism. I'm not making this up, ma'am. You have to look at the video for yourself. But that is the charge, is voyeurism. Wow. And then also the trespassing.
Well, like I said, if you guys want to send me that stuff, I don't have the bandwidth, the time, the energy, the desire to go chasing down people's videos. That's just not my thing. But if you guys come across these videos and you want to get my take on it, by all means, send me a video. But sending me a short video is really what it's going to take, because if somebody sends me a long ass video, it's going to be an eternity for me to get to it. And if it's not in and of itself a short video, then I can't just throw it in my software and do, you know what I mean? Like do a reaction or answer questions about it or that kind of thing. But,
and hopefully for those in the chat, I've explained it correctly. I'm sure they'll let you know if I said anything wrong, but I think I described it accurately, exactly what happened.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sure he's covered in as far as getting his defense ready to go and all that. Yeah, that's okay. I guess Lori says she'll be doing a clip of that particular thing for me. She says his videos about it are otherwise really long.
But like I said, the main concern is how it seems to be now that law enforcement is, and this is just maybe my opinion, it's just what I've observed. And remember, ma'am, I used to work in law enforcement and I was in the military. And I can tell you right now, I know every person says this, I was not that kind of cop. I can tell you that I was not that kind of cop. I did not go out there trying to provoke or look for trouble. I tried to mind my own business and get through the day. And if I had to go to call, I went to a call. I did what I had to do to get through the day and mind my own business. And that's what I did. I didn't go out there aggressively look to start picking on citizens and make an issue for them on their daily basis. That's not what law enforcement is supposed to do.
Right.
And it seems to be what they're doing now. It's be turning into an occupying force of an us versus them mentality. And I've seen this recently. It was called street cop training. And this is another thing that's been brought up, is that there are officers going to these training courses by other officers that are teaching them to have this kind of aggressive policing mentality. And I'm seeing this happen more and more, where officers are treating the citizens as if we're some kind of an enemy and, like we're out of control.
Yeah.
And that's just simply not the case. And that's the concern, is that the people are not going to have the kind of level of respect, or they're not going to have the level of civility in engaging law enforcement if law enforcement is going to have this us against them mentality. And the concern is this officer safety mentality is not conducive to a good community policing. And people are going to start resenting the police more than having the back the blue mentality. And it is true, back to blue until it happens to you. And when it happens to you, you're going to have that PTS. You're not going to have that respect, and you're going to fear law enforcement. And I don't know if that's what they want out of the people now, is to fear them.
Yeah.
That's just my concern. That was my question. I've seen a lot of these videos, and I've actually seen a lot of them come from Florida. I've seen a lot of them out of Florida lately, where it's just, they're smashing people's windows, they're dragging them through the door or the windshield, and this mentality, I mean, it's almost becoming the same situation in Florida that is in Texas. Doesn't the police have to assume that everybody is armed, especially since you have so many people that carry in Florida, just like you would in Texas? So why would you have this idea of officer safety that you have to worry about somebody being armed? No, and assume that they're being armed, but you don't have to go and smash everybody's windows. I mean, treat people like you would want to be treated.
I would say
and I think
no.
you won't find that situation.
This is not a state where everybody's armed like in Texas. Not even close. I mean, because it's only after I moved here. I've only been here 4 years, and it's only been after I moved here that they even passed the law that said you don't need a concealed carry permit as long as you're legally capable of obtaining a concealed carry permit. And even then, there's all these sorts of restrictions and limitations and things like that. And it's like, it's extremely menacing and threatening and overwhelming. So for someone who's always trying to be a law-abiding citizen, it can really become a huge deterrent simply to even carrying your firearm around. So at any rate, no, I wouldn't say it's anywhere like that. I would say, I mean, and I know the laws have been changing a bit since I left Michigan, but let's just say 2021 in Michigan, there were far more people carrying firearms in Michigan than in Florida, because also in Michigan, it's constitutional open carry. You don't need a permit for open carry. But in Florida, even now, it's a concealed carry is what they were supposedly protecting. You still can't supposedly open carry down here. So if somebody sees your firearm in the state of Florida, then you're in big trouble. And it's just mind-blowing to me. So anyway, it is a different world. Now that shouldn't change the mindset, right? That shouldn't make a cop violate rights more, because no matter where you are, no matter what state you're in, no matter if it's a state that, has everybody carrying and there's open constitutional carry, or you can only have concealed carry with a permit or whatever, it doesn't matter. You should always, officer safety, just common sense, you should always assume that the person that you're approaching could have a firearm, but you shouldn't, you can't let fear control all of your decisions. You still have to have that balance between what is a reasonable fear given all the totality of the facts before you, and what is, the best way to make sure you're not violating the rights of the person that you're engaging with. You know what I mean? So, at any rate, there's a lot involved there, but yeah, no, cops should not be smashing windows and taking people out that way and that kind of thing.
Can I just give you a quick example here real quick?
Sure.
I served in the Gulf War, and I also served in Somalia as well. And I was in the capacity of a military policeman. When I was there in the Gulf, the people carried rifles and they carried pistols there. And we're there in their country. And it's the same thing in Somalia. People carried rifles, they carried pistols. if we, as a force that's there, that's supposed to be in Somalia, a peacekeeping mission, which is what it was under the UN, and now we're over there in Kuwait and we're invading Iraq, we are going to be some sorry people at the end of the day if we're trying to go and disarm every person, because this is not our country. We are there to take out an enemy, and we can't go and confront every person with a firearm. So if we go and try to do that, we're going to be the ones in the body bags going home, not them, because this is their country, this is their turf, and this is their homeland. We can't do that as a society. If our law enforcement thinks that they are going to go ahead and disarm every American because they want to be an occupying force, it's not going to be a good situation, man.
No, absolutely not. No, most Second Amendment proponents are not going to just say, oh, you want my guns? Okay, I'll give them to you, no problem. So, all right, well, thank you for calling in today. I'm going to go ahead and answer some more questions that were popping up since we started talking. But
have a good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you
yes,
for taking my call.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, so first of all, I wasn't, because there's a delay with things and all that's happening, especially a delay with, the phone calls happening in real time for me, but you guys are hearing it in a delay. Then by the time the chat comes through, that's like, I'm not even, anyway, I see a whole bunch of you typed it out for me at the time, but that's not going to help me in a timely fashion because I'm not actually seeing it at the same time that I'm asking him what it is. But anyway, let's see. Okay. So as far as what Black Quiver, you said voyeurism. Really? I have, because when I said I didn't hear about it. First of all, I'm going to tell you guys, if I have knowledge on an area, on a given topic, I'll tell you. If I don't, I'm not going to pretend that I do. I can't possibly know everything. I mean, I'm pretty damn smart. I have a pretty high IQ, but I'm also a human, right? I'm not a machine. I'm not Google. And I can actually tell you I've worked a lot on child abuse cases and sex abuse cases and domestic violence cases where potentially the whole concept of voyeurism would have come into play, but yet I'd never heard that term because some municipalities, some states, some jurisdictions don't even use the same terms from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, okay? So sometimes they just call it what it is. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, stalking with a camera or whatever the case may be. So yes, really, I haven't heard of a term. Okay, so press, let's see. Question, what is the most effective legal petition to file against unconstitutional codes and ordinances in Michigan? Now, it depends because you say that in the plural form, but I'm assuming what you really mean is you're trying to address one particular ordinance at a time. And if that's the case, I will have to say it's been a while because there's a different process and things might have changed, right? I haven't kept up on all the ways. I know that they have significantly been trying to change election law and related laws in the state of Michigan since I left Michigan, only 4 years ago. And I don't have all of those changes memorized by any stretch of the imagination. But if you look to the Michigan State Constitution, and actually, give me a second here. I have an older copy in front of me. I believe there have been some modifications to it since then. But, okay, so in Article 2 of the Michigan State Constitution, Article 2 is all about elections. And Section 8 talks about recalls. Section 9 talks about initiative petitions, referendums. initiatives to, and what the duty of the legislature is, initiative or referendum of a law. Let's see. So I would say starting with Article 2, Section 8, that's where you would want to start. How they get implemented and facilitated and all of that business is, a matter of the state legislation. What?
It's not showing you talking.
It's not showing me talking right there. My little assistant here was worried that I don't know, it wasn't working, but she was looking at a different audio piece. So, at any rate, so essentially Section 9, Article 2, Section 9, the people reserves to themselves the power to propose laws and to enact and reject laws called the initiative, and the power to approve or reject laws enacted by the legislature called referendum. Again, those are state laws there, but let's see. And quite honestly, I don't even remember. That's not even the only part in there, because the petition that I drafted comes from a different part of the Constitution that I'm just not finding. Okay, that would be Article 12, Section 1, amendment by legislative proposal and vote of electors, or Section 2, amendment by petition and vote of electors. So anyway, there's different portions of things that you'd want to check out, but I would look to your municipality, so your your city, your township, whatever, their charter. And even if it's a small community like the city of Belding, 5,000 people, has a charter. And you look to that most recently updated version of the charter, and you look at how they have put into place what the procedures are for the public, the people being able to undo bad local laws. That would be where I would start. I don't have just a Staples Easy button for you, but that's where, I would start. And then do take a look at Michigan election law. I want to say it's like chapter 1/6 in MCLs, but I might not be accurate about that anymore because I don't have them all memorized anymore. Of course, it just scrolled a whole bunch. Shoot. Where? Wow, that question was a long time ago. Wow, you guys have kept the chat going. That's great. But I'm just trying to scroll through here to see. Okay, question. Legal Absurdity asks a question. What is the best cause of action when all three branches failed oath, failed life, liberty and property interests, a breach of contract, a breach of the Constitution? No, that would never fly. It wouldn't. They'd throw you out on standing. They'd throw you out on whatever. It is the social contract, but it doesn't. You can't succeed in any American courts based on a breach of contract when it comes to the government violating the Constitution, even though it is our social contract. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that it wouldn't be successful. I think we need to figure out a way to put into place people at all levels of government who actually care about the Constitution, and we need to really put into our laws and our county, city charters, our state constitutions, etc., state laws, and our federal laws, United States Code, we need to figure out how to put in there teeth into when a government official violates the law, when they violate constitutionally protected rights, when they step outside of the scope of their governmental functions. We need to figure out a way to simplify, first of all, allow, standing is no longer an issue at that point. We need to figure out how to make that happen, like I did in my Restore Freedom Initiative constitutional amendment petition that I drafted in 2020. You can look at the language on there as an example. It's on the website. If you go to the website, type in Restore Freedom Initiative, you'll be able to find the document itself. The petition itself. Don't look at the 100-word summary on the front of the document. That's a legal requirement by the state of Michigan for initiative petitions. You need to look at the backside of the document, which gives the full actual text of the amendment. But anyway, so we need to figure out how to put teeth in there where, number one, standing is no longer a prohibition for people actually holding their government officials accountable. And then number two, once you have standing no longer an issue, then you need to make it so that there's actual teeth. And if you have violated the rights of the people, if you are stepping outside of the scope of your governmental authority, then you are actually held accountable in personal, real, tangible ways, whether it be huge financial penalties, jail time, prison time, certainly being stripped of public office and not being allowed to hold public office ever again. There's some significant concerns and things like that. Not even hold public office, but not even being able to work in the public sector at all. Like you can't even be a janitor at the state capitol building because you are no longer worthy of receiving funds from we the people when you have violated that public trust. We need to figure out ways to implement those kinds of changes. Then all the rest of it would fall into place. If we just have accountability, which you can't have without transparency, right? So things like FOIA and Open Meetings Act and all that other stuff, accountability and transparency need to be the forefront of everything. And once you have those in place, then that is your vehicle. That is your avenue for changing all of the other unconstitutional things that are happening, or local codes or ordinances that are perhaps illegal because they violate state statutes or things of that nature. You have to have the accountability mechanism in place, and we don't have that. It's ridiculous. So anyway, that's the number one thing that I would say. Okay. What other questions do we have? Okay, am I familiar with Senate Bill 852, the study of property taxes that failed to pass the last month? An Okeechobee man is challenging the constitutionality of property taxes in court. Does it have any? There's a lot going on in this question. I apologize. I am not up to speed on that. So Okeechobee, I'm assuming you're talking about a Florida Senate Bill 852, and I'm not familiar with that one. But I don't know what a Senate bill has anything to do with a court case, especially if it's a Senate bill that didn't pass. So we're not talking about implementation of a bill. So I feel like I definitely need a lot more information for me to make an argument about that. Oh, okay. Let me back up. If you are talking about what was the initiative, I guess, of Governor DeSantis, on trying to eliminate the real estate, the home property taxes here in the state of Florida, if that's what House Bill 8 or Senate Bill 852 was, then and how they failed to pass it with the Republican-controlled legislature that we supposedly have here, then I know a little bit about that. And if you're saying then that it's tied to that concept of challenging property taxes here in the state of Florida, that it's unconstitutional, as I guess he would consider it a unconstitutional taking or something. I don't know what the argument is. I don't know if it really has a chance. I'd like to hear what the legal arguments are that he's put forth and in what court. So is he just bringing it through the normal chain of command, so to speak, here in the judicial system here in Florida, or did he bring a federal case? And if so, there's different elements there at play. Generally speaking, state constitutional interpretation follows in line with U.S. constitutional interpretation by federal courts, but not always, especially if the wording is different of a certain constitutional concept. But should there be, I've thought about that. What should be taxed then? What should be taxed? That's an interesting question. If there is no real estate taxes, what is it that should be taxed? And here's the thing. I think government is 95% bigger than what it should be at all levels, literally at all levels, state, local, national, all of it, right? So the amount of funds that they expend and the amount of, funds that they collect from we the people, from all kinds of taxes, real estate taxes, sales tax, use taxes, taxes on products, taxes on services, taxes. I mean, how many times a used car is sold from the time it was a brand new car, and then it's sold 2 or 3 or 4 times, and there's always tax, and then it's registration and taxes. There's taxes in the form of vehicle registration fees and things like that, just to register it each time, and all that nonsense, right? There's taxes and licensing fees for all kinds of things. And there shouldn't be, the vast majority of licenses out there shouldn't even be a thing, so there shouldn't be a fee associated with that. But there are some functions of government that are constitutional in nature, and I'll just pick on infrastructure and national defense. Those two things, infrastructure and national defense, there has to be a funding mechanism for that. And if there's going to be a funding mechanism for that, where does that funding come from? It would have to come from taxes. But what do we tax? What is the appropriate item or service or property that should be taxed? Should it be income? Should it be real estate? Should it be sales? Like, I don't like any of them, but it gives the realistic issue and problem of, for only those truly essential functions and services that are constitutional in nature that the government should be doing. So off the top of my head, infrastructure and defense, and not defense of government, but defense of our country, border patrol, for example, things like that. Where would that funding come from? And then it has to be proportionate, right? So for example, our house, the property taxes are insane. I mean, they are $3,700 for a 1,300 square foot house with no garage. There's no in-ground pool. There's no, there's nothing fancy. There's no tennis court. There's no basketball court. We're not in an HOA. We live a block from the ocean, which is why we picked this place. But there's nothing special or unique or, we're not sitting on a pile of gold or copper or anything like that. So how can we justify for a 1,300 square foot house, $3,700 a year in taxes? No. It needs to be proportionate to the use of the infrastructure. If they're the public, for example, water and sewer services, or back, I don't even know if Minnesota does it this way anymore, but back when I was in college in Minnesota, I want to say it was electricity and the water. I know for sure it was at least electricity. The electricity and the water and sewer were provided. Those are services that were municipal services. And but the thing is, when I paid the city of Marshall, Minnesota for my electric bill. That was the lowest electric bill I ever had in my whole life. I've lived in 3 different states, dozens of communities. That is the lowest electric bill I had in my life. And so that set my framework of, okay, so there is actually a way that you can have municipalities or government entities providing a functional, infrastructure type of service, if you will, and have it actually be tied proportionately to, what people are being charged versus what they're receiving. I mean, my electric bill, I'd have to go look. I'm pretty sure there were months that my electric bill was like $15 in Minnesota. In Minnesota. So like when and I'm pretty sure I had electric baseboard heat in the apartment I was living in. At any rate, that's my take on it. Anyway, is that there has to be taxes of some kind, but our whole tax system is wrong, and it's taxing because government is 95% bigger than it's supposed to be. The taxing, we'll just say, is proportionately 95% bigger than what it should be. If my taxes were only 5% of what they are now, if they were, instead of being, let's just say it's 4,000, just easy math for me. So instead of being 400, they were 200, they were 5% of what, $200 a year would be far more reasonable for the kinds of services that I'm receiving here in this city that has 5,000 people. But at any rate, so does it stand a chance? I don't know. Like I said, I would love to see the legal arguments there. So Patrick McGinnis, if you want to send that over to me somehow, if you have the initial complaint about that, for that court case that the Okeechobee man brought forth, I mean, you could send it contact@restorefreedomkh.com. Okay, I just happen to see, I'm trying to go in order of that the questions came up, and I see you have rights, cops have duties, says has to be taxes, 57 question marks, not on the people, but I'll talk to you more about it if you can drop part of that ego. You can leave my channel, and you're an idiot. I just explained to you why we would tax the people. Okay. So if there's taxes and you don't tax the people, who the hell are you taxing? There's a concept of taxation without representation. That's the whole, if you don't know history here in the United States, I can't help you on that. The problem is that we need to have taxes that are proportionate to a constitutional appropriate service that is being provided. And for example, national defense, let's just pick on that alone. National defense, who's paying for that? If there's no taxes that the people are having to pay, even if everybody puts $10 in a year, and we have, I don't know how many people we have. Is it like 300 million or something? I want to say it's like 10 million in the state of Florida or Michigan, and 25 million people in the state of Florida, something like that, et cetera, right? We have, I'm just going to say it's 300 million. I have no idea if that number's right, but 300 million people that live across the country. If each person paid $10 in taxes every year, that should about do it for the cost of defense. If we're not overly spending and we're being fiscally conservative, I would think we could handle that. But to say that the people pay zero taxes, then we're not going to last long, because there's not going to be, maybe initially, maybe if we had a break of 5 years with no taxes being paid because we immediately stopped all the waste in government spending and all of that, and there's no taxes on anything for 5 years. There's a moratorium on all taxes because each government entity has to utilize the pot of funds that they already have stored up, and they can only use those funds to perform actual constitutionally allowed services to the people that they are supposed to be serving. Then yeah, I guess that would make sense. But at some point, that money that they already have is going to run out, and the government doesn't exist on its own. It's of the people, by the people, for the people. like, it doesn't have its own money. So I don't know what crack you're smoking, but you just leave. Like, I don't have an ego. I have common sense, which you need to start using. But anyway, any other? Okay. Please don't jump around. Trying to scroll carefully so it doesn't jump and I miss somebody's question. Okay, and then there's every so often Lori. Okay, so Lori said the Attorney General's office issued, so she's repeating somebody else's question, I guess. The Attorney General's office issued a memo in February stating their intention to use the death penalty against undocumented immigrants. Is that legal? I assume you mean the U.S. Attorney General's office, and I did not see that. I would love to see the memo because I'm going to call bullshit. I'm actually going to call bullshit on that. Now, if they're seeking the death penalty for undocumented immigrants who have committed violent and heinous crimes, okay, but they're not, first of all, they can't seek the death penalty just for being an undocumented immigrant. For being an illegal immigrant, that's not a thing, okay? So what they are trying to do, though, is focus the biggest efforts on deporting the people who are violent and dangerous in our country. And so if somebody, so for example, this, I'm going to pronounce his name all wrong. Abrego Garcia, I think, is the name, the pronunciation, but it's probably not. You know who I'm talking about, though. The guy who's made national news because he was deported to his own country. And then, actually, he was deported on a legal order of deportation. Like, they didn't skip that part. There's been one in place since 2019, the whole 9 yards. Anyway, so he's back, though, because now they're prosecuting him for a variety of things, including human trafficking and violent crimes and things of that nature. And so if he's found guilty of some of those heinous, violent crimes, then yeah, I'm assuming they'll go after the highest level of punishment, the death penalty, if that's possible. If his actions led to the death of humans or great bodily injury, and so there are federal statutes that allow for the death penalty as a punishment for the crimes that he's committed, then yeah, I could see how it's the administration's policy that they're going to go after that highest punishment possible. But no, the administration, wherever you heard that from, if you're saying that the administration is just going to run around executing illegal immigrants, that's bullshit. And I would love to see where that came from, because that news outlet is definitely has zero credibility, and I would like to stay far away from them in the future. But I mean, it could very well be ABC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, all those. Okay, so are there any other questions? So anyway, I believe the last question I answered, you said you were asking if that's legal, and I believe I answered that it's legal. It might even be an enhancement, because coming into the country is a legal offense. It's a criminal offense. So it might be considered a legal enhancement when you look at sentencing factors. And once you're past the guilt phase, they've already been found guilty, and now you have moved on to what their proper punishment should be. Illegal immigration might be considered an enhancing factor to increase what the punishment might otherwise be. Okay, so question. Can I still puff if I don't inhale in an illegal state? That's not a real question, and I don't know what are you even getting at with there? Blue line transparency, you're just trying to give me a hard time. What are you doing? Stop playing with the dog.
I'm not. I'm trying to call him.
Just you sit in the chair.
Well, he's gonna
Emma?
go crazy.
No, he's not. You're crazy. Sit in the chair.
He's gonna go crazy.
Emma. Okay. Someone asks, why in my criminal history report does it show I was arrested but never convicted of anything and the case was dismissed? Why would it be there if I was never convicted of a crime? That does show up, and it depends on the level of criminal history, like what exactly, there's different types. Leave him alone. Don't touch him. Don't look at him. Thank you. My dog is now chasing his tail. Hopefully you guys can't hear all that scuffling back and forth because he's essentially wrestling with himself. And he's kind of a big dog. So it depends on what level of criminal history report we're talking about. And I haven't seen all the different kinds. I've seen some, and I used to get some copies when I was a public defender. It was often sent to me as part of a package right away when I was appointed to a case. So I knew what I was dealing with and what information the prosecutor had as far as like what they would be trying to use at trial and what kind of sentencing enhancements they might be looking at or things of that nature. Being arrested and not convicted cannot be used for purposes of sentencing enhancements. And it doesn't have, really, it shouldn't appear on the vast majority of criminal history types of context. It shouldn't appear anywhere. So it's hard to say without seeing the actual report and seeing the context with which it was, brought forth. I can't really explain that for you other than it's technically part of a history because there was an arrest for a crime and then you were, the case was dismissed. So if you think about it that way, it is part of the history. I was unlawfully arrested and pursued criminally when I never committed a crime. And it took 2 years, but the judge finally agreed that I didn't commit a crime and he dismissed my case. But let's see. So Lori was just copying those questions again. Okay, good. I'm glad you were just joking. Okay, and apparently I missed another one. How am I missing all of these? I'm sorry, guys. I swear I was scrolling. I must have missed a whole chunk, but I apologize for that. Dave Apex apparently asked, how can we use small claims court and sue the government worker for a denial of rights and keep the monetary amount under the threshold of small claims? Generally speaking, no, you cannot do that because okay. So the fact that a text came through, I thought it was an emergency or Lori or Mike telling me something about the show, but it's not. It's about our health insurance ending. That's what Mike was texting me about. So anyway, okay. So generally speaking, no, you cannot use small claims court to bring claims against a governmental entity. Generally speaking, the cases that so for example, in Michigan, oftentimes if you want to sue a governmental entity, you have to bring it to the Court of Claims, which is like its own trial level court, special in the state of Michigan. And if it doesn't belong there, then you often have to file a claim in the circuit court, which is, in Michigan, there are 3 trial level courts. There's probate court that deals with adoption, sometimes divorce and custody matters. They deal with abuse and neglect cases, adult guardianships, things like that. The probating of estates, wills and trusts, that kind of thing. Then you have the district court, which deals with dollar amounts that are generally, $25,000 or less. I don't know if they changed that. They probably changed it throughout the years and I just haven't kept up on it. But roughly speaking, $25,000 or less for like a contract claim. They deal with landlord-tenant type stuff, but not actual real estate ownership interest. That is dealt with in a circuit court. District courts also deal with misdemeanor crimes, but not high misdemeanors or things where you could have a year or more in prison as a possible penalty. And then anyway, circuit court is where you have those, civil cases that are $25,000 or more. You have, most oftentimes that's the court that's dealing with your divorce cases, your, your felonies and high misdemeanor crimes, things like that. Okay. So each court kind of has its own niche. And generally speaking, in Michigan, if you want to sue a governmental entity, it's going to be in the Court of Claims or Circuit Court, depending on what kind of claim that it is. So other states have similar procedures and processes that you have to follow. And it's possible, because I don't know the procedures of 50 states, it's possible that you can file a small claims case against a governmental entity and keep it below that small claims financial threshold, potentially. But I just don't know of a jurisdiction where that is a possibility. So just keep that in mind. Oftentimes, too, small claims matters are presided over by magistrates, or let's just say people that maybe retired judges, but people that view themselves as so far removed from the Constitution that they, oh, you bring up the Constitution? Oh, no, I can't deal with that. Nope, we don't deal with the Constitution here. That's at a higher court. And it's garbage. It's garbage. But anyway, so unfortunately, that's the situation. And it jumped again. So let's see. Sorry that I missed so many of the okay. All right. So, okay. I think Black Quiver, I do not know what you feel abused and neglected about, but hopefully you'll be fine. 5-minute penalty. Did you get a 5-minute penalty? Okay, there's obviously a lot going on in the chat that I have no idea what's going on there. So I've answered all the questions in the chat. We ended up only having the one telephone call today. We will be live again. Let me just see here. We will be live again. It looks like August 12th. When my baby will be visiting her sisters in the state of Michigan.
For 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks. And that's her first full day there. So I will be sad and lonely. Okay, just put him outside. Just like, not in the backyard. Just put him out. Open that door for a minute. And you can just leave that door open for right now. That's fine. Just leave the door open. Okay. Our dog is naughty, so he needs to be directly supervised unless he's wearing his muzzle, and then he can often still times try to ruin things or chew on things. It's great. So glad my husband decided we needed to adopt a puppy, and he's apparently a puppy for another year or two. Anyway, so August 12th, join us live here on YouTube for the opportunity to ask legal and constitutional questions. And we don't always have to agree, but you don't need to be disrespectful or insulting. And I do implore you to use common sense and be willing to think about what some of those, implications are of different things going on. So, again, I'm not always, I'm not necessarily in favor of or liking some of the things that happen, but if it's constitutional in nature, or essentially if somebody else's rights are at risk or in play, then I don't have to like what's going on. They have their rights, I have mine, everybody has rights, and it's the government's job to provide equal protection of those rights, not just equal harassment opportunities. But anyway, with all that is being said, yes, please do consider donating to the, let's see, I have links here somewhere. Please do consider donating. You can, if you go to the donate page, restorefreedomkh.com/donate, it gives you opportunities to donate for whatever in particular you might feel so inclined to donate. If you want to donate specifically to the Restore Freedom legal work, when I'm answering people's questions, doing stuff like this, when I'm trying to keep our website up and running and have legal documents there for you to utilize, copy the formatting or, pulling parts of the legal arguments to use in your own cases or whatever that kind of stuff might entail. Please keep in mind that all that has a literal cost, and none of that is my time, right? My time has been 100% free for the last 5 years in providing any kind of resources that I can to you as another fellow member of We the People. And so anyway, if you can donate to help so that I'm not continuing to pay for all this stuff out of my own pocket and lose funds, because I'm certainly not making money as an attorney. I'm paying to be an attorney right now to help people just like you, whether it's a one-time donation, whether it is a recurring donation. I mean, if you want to set up a recurring $5 donation, so every month you go through PayPal and you do a $5 donation and you don't even have to think about it, that would mean the world to me. If you want to send me, somebody recently, I think it was March, was the last time I got a paper check. Somebody sent a paper check and they wrote on the memo line what it was for. Sometimes people want to donate to help with our medical expenses, especially now at times like this when we're losing our insurance. And my husband didn't lose his job. The company just sold, and now the new owner is hiking up the insurance to the point where it's going to be $6,000 a year in premiums. And even after we pay that, we have to pay $10,000 of deductibles before we ever see a dime of medical benefits, which would be $16,000 out of pocket before they ever help us with anything. And we don't have $16,000. So at any rate, with all that being said, you can donate specifically to certain things, and whatever you write on there that you want it to go to, whether it's to help us personally for the ways that I've contributed, time, talent, treasure, or whether it's just the legal work itself, the funds go as you direct them. So please check that website out. It'll tell you where to mail a check. If you want to donate that way, you have the opportunity to donate through Cash App, which is my personal favorite because there's no fees on that, but there's also PayPal and some other methods as well. RestoreFreedomKH.com/OBCase has everything up to date except for the newest, which I didn't even tell you guys about today. So I guess I will have to talk about it in our next show since we've already gone 2 hours today. But everything except for the most recent order from the Court of Appeals is on there. Please feel free to go ahead and check that out. Use whatever resources are on there. If you do want to, if you back up to the resources tab, which is the next link I share on the screen, there's all kinds of other resources to look at. But this particular case is the one that is, been the longest that I've had to deal with and most recent because we're still going through it. Already been in the magistrate court, already been in circuit court, already been in the Court of Appeals, and now if I want to continue this case at all, there's a small piece that I will have to start with the circuit court, and the rest of it I will have to try to get the United States Supreme Court to take up. So to give you the short version, the Court of Appeals denied my motion for rehearing, and they denied my motion for written opinion. So they literally, one sentence, just threw out my case without saying why. Literally no reason why. Should be the most obvious denial of due process ever possible, to just throw out somebody's rights without even giving a reason why. And because they gave no reason why, the Florida state constitutions very much so limits the jurisdiction of the state Supreme Court to touch cases. So the court of last resort in the state of Florida for most cases is the Court of Appeals. And I had several reasons why that the law was on my side, the court rules were on my side, the Constitution was on my side, that they should have, at the very least, if they weren't even going to reopen my case and rule in my favor on the merits, then they should have at least given a written opinion so that the Supreme Court could then deal with the case. And they refused to do that. So then the Supreme Court in the state of Florida has no jurisdiction. So my only shot is to try to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. And unfortunately, the U.S. Supreme Court tends to not take cases unless the highest court available to the person in their case, whether it's the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court in any particular state, whether that highest court has ruled on the merits of the case. So chances are not good for the U.S. Supreme Court to take my case because the Court of Appeals has not ruled on the merits of my case, And the Supreme Court doesn't have jurisdiction to rule on the merits of my case. So I'm probably going to get screwed there, but I'm nonetheless most likely going to try. And it's going to be an uphill battle, but how can I not? How can I let them physically tear apart my house and fine me for all infinity? There's no way. There's absolutely no way. So I would appreciate your prayers and thoughts. And if you want to donate to help that cause is still going, and more costs are going to be incurred because, of course, there's filing fees at the U.S. Supreme Court, and the manner in which you file is a lot more complicated. They don't do e-filing. They do e-filing for attorneys, but it does not replace paper filing. And it's not just, normal sheet of paper, like this that you e-file on. Oh, no. It is on 60-pound paper with certain color jackets that they call them. The size of the paper is smaller. The print has to be you have to submit 40 copies of each document you submit has to be in this booklet format, and you have to submit 40 copies of each of these documents every time you submit something. The cost is it's definitely cost prohibitive. So I ask for your prayers and your consideration as far as financial donations are considered as well. But please go ahead and join us on August 12th with all the rest of your legal and constitutional questions. We'd love to hear from you. Hit that like button, hit the share button, and tell people on all of your other social media platforms about this show and about the resources we have on the website so they can tune in to have their questions answered as well. And with that, I guess, let's see, did I see another question come in? It looks like the rest of it jumped around. And let's see. Yeah, sorry. I thought there were maybe questions, but maybe you guys are just chatting back and forth. So anyway, with that, it looks like there's just a bunch of chat back and forth, which is great. I'm glad you guys are chatting back and forth. So with that being said, I appreciate all of you guys, and I will see you guys next time. So thanks, guys.
Our work to restore freedom would not be possible without support from people just like you. From the various software and hardware needed to the legal research materials, every dollar you can donate helps. Make sure to like and share this video too. And remember to follow and subscribe and click that notification button.